So we're in Deuteronomy 22 verse 5, and we spent quite a bit of time on this verse in the book, looking at it from different perspectives. Spent the last couple of lessons looking at the verse in the English, and as soon as you do that, you begin to see problems. You begin to see that you can't just do a plain reading of the verse because it causes problems. We spoke about people doing things in private, people doing things in public, whether the issue is about the label on the clothing, and if you took the label off, we'd all fix the problem. We've spoken about patterns and styles of cut or fringes. All of those things we've addressed. And every time you go down that road, it seems to me that you end up coming to a place of inconsistency. And so people begin to pick and choose what they want to do and how they want to dress. And as soon as we start getting to a place where we're doing that, we know that there are problems. We looked at the verse in the English, and it's there on the board. What we said we want to do now is try to look at the verse in the Hebrew. So, as has been noted in previous classes, I'm sure you've all studied in the original languages for yourself, you see that there's not parity from the Hebrew to the English. There's not one Hebrew word for one English word. It doesn't work that way. We all agree with that? Do we already have an awareness of that? It's not one Hebrew word equals one English word. Did you know that, Sister Elizabeth? Yep. Sister Dorcas, did you know that? Sorry? You didn't understand the question? Sister Jackie, can you tell her what the question was? Okay. My sister? Were you listening? So, when you go from Hebrew to English, what is the issue that you're confronted with? So you say in the Hebrew it could be a number of words, and in the English it could be one word, or it can be the other way round. It can be one Hebrew word, which would be a number of English words. Yes? Okay? So if it's, and often it's that way round, it's a singular Hebrew word, and we have a multiple English words. So that's what we tend to have most of the time. So if it's one Hebrew word and you've got 3 English words, so here's the question. Why in English, if we've added words, are they not italicized? Why are they not put into italics? You've got one Hebrew word and you've got 3 English words, and you believe, I'm sure, that if you add words in the King James, you italicize it. Is that right? If you add the words that aren't there in the original, you put it in italics. Daily sacrifice isn't there, so you add the word sacrifice, and so that people know that, you put it in italics. You aware of all of that? Yes? So, in thousands, literally thousands of sentences, multiple times in verses, you have one Hebrew word or one Greek word, and you have about 3 English words, and they don't italicize them. Did you know that? You didn't? So we're in this verse. Are there any words that are italicized in this verse, 22 verse 5? Are there any words in italics? Yes or no? You don't know? You can't read the verse? Or why don't you know? We're in verse 5. Why don't you know if anything's italicized? You don't have a King James? Do you know what italicized means? When it's sloping, when it's not straight, when it's at an angle. Hold on. I just want to check if there's a problem with the Bible. So the problem with this Bible is it's not very good. That indeed in her Bible there's no italicized words here. Explore it for a second. Get back on camera. So this is called the King James Bible, but it's called the King James Bible version 2000. I guess it was published in the year 2000. So if you look at Daniel 8 verse 11, oops, sorry, and it says daily sacrifice. Sacrifice is not italicized, is it? Okay, so she's got a King James, but it's a modern King James, modern printing of it, and it doesn't have the words italicized. Does yours, Sister Jackie? Do you have italics in yours? Yeah? Does anybody else have a King James, which is, I guess, a modern printing of it that is not italicized? Yeah? So there are a couple people who have that. So just that you're aware of that, if you want to do, I guess, some rigorous study, you probably want to get a different Bible. Not a different Bible version, but a different Bible, because it really is useful to know which words are in italics and which words are not. So there are at least 2 people who have a Bible that is not functioning well. So, Sister Monica, any italicized words? Yes? How many? 1. And the word is? Are. For all that do so are abomination unto the Lord thy God. So the word are is not there in the original. For all that do so, abomination unto the Lord thy God. So in the original, there's enough rigidity there for them not to be able to just put the word are in plain text, so they're going to add that concept in. So if we go to, it says the woman here. In the English, this is 2 words. In the English, this is 2 words. Yes? In the Hebrew, how many words is it for each one? It's 1. Yeah? So, it's 1 Hebrew word. What number is this? Is it 802? 802? This one? I probably won't be able to hear you. 3808? Is that right? No, did I misdo it? Everybody agree with that? Put your hands up if you disagree. Okay, Is that because you're working on the phone? It's a different coding? Is it 6 at the end? Oh, why is my one's different? Sorry? Shall not wear that which pertaineth. All of those words is just one word. Okay. So, eSword is a cheap Bible program. It's free. And it uses, it doesn't use the best quality data sources. It's public domain sources, which are free, obviously, and really is, you get what you pay for. So if you get free stuff, it tends to be low quality. But it's kind of reasonable, eSword is. So I don't know what programs you're using on your phone. Is it MySword? Yeah. Most of you use Android. And I'm guessing this one's even worse than the King James. So, yep, it says, shall not wear that which pertaineth is all just one word. And there was something else that there was a problem with last time we looked. What was that one? Oh, it was in Daniel 9, it's a totally different subject. Oh, it was a daily in Daniel 8, yes. The daily in Daniel 8 was a different coding. It was, in eSword, it's a noun, and in your Bible, it said it was a verb, I think, or an adjective, adverb. Desolate. That's right, yes. That changed the things as well. That was 927. Okay, so you should all be using computers when you're doing your studies. Your phones are not any good. Or what you could do is, it's probably crazy, you probably won't do it, or you can't do it, is to get a software for your phone which you pay for, which would mean you'd have to pay for the KJV Plus or the Strong's Concordance, and you'd get a higher grade, a better quality one, and I think you'd find that the one that you've got now isn't the right one to use, is not as good. Because it's free, yeah.
The eSword for the laptop is free, only that people don't know how to download the modules.
As in, I assume people just don't have laptops.
Yeah, on the laptops there are modules that you have to download each, but
Yeah.
people don't know how to go about it.
So if you've got a laptop and you don't know how to use eSword, or you need some help with something, speak to me, and then I'll maybe direct you to someone who might be able to help you while we're here. If you've got a phone, I think you're going to have to resort to buying an app. There's a couple of them. I'll find some names, but you end up having to. The apps are normally free, by the way. You end up having to pay for the modules, and the modules can be expensive depending on which modules there are. Either that, or if you have a laptop, use a laptop. eSword's pretty good. It's free. So we'll move on if we're okay. Let me just check something. Okay, all I'm just going to do is just give me 1 second. I just want to check something. So all I'm doing is, you can do this on My Sword. Has anybody got a Hebrew Bible on their My Sword app? Did you ever download a Hebrew Bible? Everybody know what Hebrew Bible is? It's all in Hebrew. You can't read it, so most of us probably wouldn't bother. But you can get Hebrew Bibles, which are just Hebrew, just like you get King James, which is just English. And then you get King James Plus, or I think in My Sword it's called KJV Lite, and then KJV. Is that how it works on your phones? The Lite version is just the English, and the KJV is with all the Strong's numbering. Everybody know what I'm talking about? If you've got an app that you should know what I mean. You can get a Hebrew equivalent. You can just get the Hebrew, which is not of much help, but you can get a Hebrew with the Strong's numbering attached with it. Does that make sense? And if you're going to do that, you can check if it's missing any information. So I'm just checking now. Yeah, so in the King James version I've got 802, 3808, 1961, and then what everyone else had was 3627. So I guess very few of you have got that structure, yeah. If you're working on a phone, all you've got is this one, because you're all using My Sword. Does anybody have Apple? iPhone? No one using that? Does it have? Do you know what it has on your app on your iPhone? Nobody? Okay. So I've just checked in the Hebrew, and obviously all the words are in different order, but it has all of the same coding in the Hebrew that it does in the King James. Does that make sense?
Sorry, I've got an iPhone.
Yep.
I use Blue Letter Bible.
Is that a downloadable app or?
Yeah, Blue Letter Bible is free, and in verse 5 it shows R in colours as supplied word.
Okay.
BLB, Blue Letter Bible.
I think. Let me check. I think it does in My Sword as well. My Sword, it's the same. It italicizes it. If you do Strong's, does it have the same coding that's on the board, or does it? Okay. While he's looking, so I've just checked in this Hebrew version that is in King James. Sorry, is in eSword. It is agreeing with the King James that there are indeed 1, 2, 3, 4. Got 4 there. The first 4 Hebrew words are reflected in the original. Any questions on that?
My question is the other last word starts from that until man. The other last section, how we are placed it in that going forward.
So, I don't think I understood your question.
My question is, according to how it is there, the Hebrew word 3627, it begins from that which pertaineth unto a man. All that. That's my question.
Oh, my one, no. Unto a man. Oh, no. Sorry, I hadn't finished it. 1397. Sorry, yeah. So it's 1397. I think it probably says that in your On your phones, doesn't it? Yeah, it says 1397. So on your phones it has 3. 1, 2, 3, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's these two that are missing on your phones. And on your... It's not missing on your one as well. Okay. It's not good. Okay, so this is not as easy as I had hoped it was going to be because we don't even have the information in front of you. So hopefully we'll be able to work through this. Together. We're going to go through each one of those 5 words. Even on your phone, if you don't have all of those words there in the verse, which you don't, so if we agree with that, what you can do still on your phone is actually find out what the definition of those words is. Is everyone okay with that and how to do that? Everybody okay with what I've just said? Do we all know how to use My Sword if you have it on your phone? Who's got My Sword right in front of them now and they're using it? One person? Do you want to put your hands up? My Sword on your phone. Okay, so a number of people are using it. So we've already said that some Bible versions only have 3 words, 802, 3627 and 1397. Let's go ahead and put the rest of it on. We'll go down to the second line before we discuss the point that I was going to make. So let's go down to the second line. Do we have neither? No, you don't. You're going to have neither shall a man. You've got 1397. And I've got 3808. Are we okay with that? In your versions, you've only got 1397 for all of this. So we've got 3808, 3808. Neither shall not. Same? Yeah. We've got 1397, we've got 1397. So here it says unto a man, it just says shall a man. Yes? So in your versions it says neither shall a man, and all it has is 1397, nothing else. Yep. Then we've got put. So you've got 3847, which I have. In my version, it's put on. And in your version, it just says put. The on is tucked over to the other side. And 3847. 802? Woman's? There it is, woman's. 802. So we'll take that out. 802. And then one more. 8071, do we have that? Yep. 8071. Are we all in agreement with all of that? So, as we approach this verse now this way, and we're looking at the Hebrew words, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the top and 5 at the bottom. You can see that? Some of the words are straightforward. It says neither at the bottom, 3808, which is the same as shall not, 3808, straightforward. It says unto a man, 1397, shall a man, 1397. We're okay with that? And the rest of it gets a bit different. So at the top line it says 802, the woman, and at the bottom it says 802. We're okay with that? We can see they're the same word there, 802. If all that's correct, and we'll say that it is, what difficulties are we confronted with now? What was the comment? Now what's the comment? On anything that they're seeing. All looks good, everyone okay? Look what we've done here. We've got the word woman, which is a straightforward noun, and now we've turned it into what here in the English? What was this in the English? So this is now possessive here, and it's not possessive here, is it? It's totally different. But the word is the same. So what's being done is when you translate from one language to another, there's a lot of complexity in that translation that we are not privy to, because we don't understand how to read Hebrew. But you can see there's quite a bit of difference here. So in your Bibles, it says, neither shall a man. And it just says 1397. And here it says, unto a man. So let's just turn to 1397. If you go to 1397, and tell me what 1397 means. Everybody there? So we're in 1397, and which dictionary do you want to go into? Lexicon or dictionary, same thing. Someone's going to go to BDB, and someone's going to go to Strong's. Okay? So, someone go to We'll go with the Strong's version. If you've got Strong's in front of you, hopefully you've got it in front of you. The first thing before we go through the definition, just want to give a structure of Strong's. So even though on your phones it might look slightly different, it should be about the same. Let me do it on my phone with you. So we're in 1397. Then if you can see that, is that what you should have? Something like that? Yeah? So that looks pretty much the same as it does in eSword. It says 1397, original. It's got the Hebrew coding. There's a transliteration. That means what that means in English. And then there's a phonetic spelling. Giba, I don't know how you'd pronounce that. My spelling's not that good, pronunciation. So Giba. And then it's got Strong's definition. First thing we notice, it says it's from 1396. Okay, so that tells you this is not a root word. So it tells you where it comes from. So the first thing you'd want to do, after you've looked at the word itself, is go to 1396 and see what that says. So we'll do that in a moment. It says 1396. Then if you go through the wording, you'll see this consistently in King James. It'll give you the definition. Then it ends with a colon and a dash. Can you see that on your phones? Yeah? Everyone can see that? If you're on your laptop version or your phone version, it's always the same. And what does it say after that? Everyone, are we all there? We can see that? So it says everyone, then it says man, then it says mighty. Everybody can see that? So when you're doing a study and you're going to use Strong's, you want to look for this sign here. And what that's telling you is everything on this side is different to everything on this side. So, do we trust Strong's? Do we think Strong's is abiding by rule number 5? Miller's rule number 5. Do we think he's doing that? My sister said no. So if your answer was no, that would mean that we wouldn't trust him, would we? Because he's not using the same rule. So we'd say Mr. Strong is either proud, or he's guessing, or he's got some agenda. We agree with that? If we don't trust him. So if we didn't trust him, we wouldn't use it. So I'm going to suggest that we do trust him. We trust what he says, but we don't trust him implicitly. So we have a level of trust, if I can say it that way. So when you go to the Bible and say, what does this mean? You go to ask a prophet and the prophet will tell you. You don't say, let me check and ask someone else. We don't say in a multitude of counsel there is safety, do we? When it comes to Bible. No, we don't. But when we come to Strong's, do we do that? Do we say, tell us what you think, Mr. Strong? And he tells us, and what do we say? Hold on, let me do what? Let me ask those 3 other friends of yours. Who are those 3 friends that he's got? Mr. Brown, Mr. Driver, and Mr. Briggs. The problem is, they're in a confederacy. So there's a confederacy of those 3 men, so they only have one answer between themselves. So at least we could say at least 3 individual people have come together and understood it. In the multitude of counsel there is safety. So we have to approach this, I'm going to say, in a pragmatic fashion. That means practical, carefully. So we're going to say, we're going to trust his definition. To trust that means he's taken that word in the Hebrew, told you the English word for it, and we say we can trust what that means. Yep, because we say he's not guessing, he doesn't have pride, and he hasn't got an agenda. So he's following the same rules. But we don't give it a big tick, do we? We give it a little tick. Because we still want to double check. And who else are we going to ask? We're going to ask Brown Driver Briggs. This was Strong's. Brown Driver Briggs is three people, three theologians that came together to produce their concordance, their lexicon, their version of what Strong's did. Have I lost anybody in what I've said so far? For most of us, we should know this, but some perhaps don't. If you weren't familiar with this, hopefully I haven't confused you. So I'm saying, let's put it this way. We'll give Strong's half a yes, and we'll give Brown Driver Briggs half a yes. So if we get both of their versions, put them together, what do we get? We say, okay, now we understand 100% what that word means. And what we're assuming is that they're following rule number 5. If they didn't, we're in big trouble. We might as well throw away these tools if we don't believe that they're following rule number 5. Everybody okay with that? Okay? So, this is definition. What's after this colon on dash, all of these words, this is not the definition of what that Hebrew word means. So what Hebrew word are we into now? 1397. 1397 does not mean that. 1397 means this. What this is, and Strong's has been really helpful to us, what he's done is, he's gone to this word here, 1397, and he says, let me check how that word is used all through the Bible, or the Old Testament, because it's Hebrew. He takes up all the places that it's found, and what number have you got in your commentaries or something? It doesn't tell you in, I don't think it tells you on your phone, does it? How many times it comes up? Does it tell you? Yeah, how many? 65? Okay, so we've got 68. Mine says 65. Sometimes there's a variation depending on how the counting goes and who produces the book, etc. So it tells you how many times that word's used. That's one thing. And then it tells you this word could be translated this way in one place and this way in another. So we'll just have a quick view of that. I don't know if you've got that on your phone as well. So I've actually got in my one 70 times. So it translates as man 58 times. 58 times as man, then men, then man's, then mighty, and then everyone. So every, I'll put one up here, one time for one and one time for every. Okay? And so then I've got mighty, which is 2 times. So don't ask me about the maths. Sometimes these things need a bit more detailed explanation and you need to check more carefully. The reason is because the word man could also be translated as men or man's in possession. So when you add all of that, you end up getting to that, that number 70, if that's okay. So it all adds up to 70 in mine. So I've got 58, and I've got men, which is 6, and man's, which is 2. So I'd add another 8 onto that, plus 8, which is 56. 56 plus 4, you get to 70. If you're okay with that. All I want us to see is that everything that's here is not the definition of the word. So when you're doing your studies, don't be so focused on this that comes after the colon. And sometimes this is a long list. Your focus should be here. So if you go to the definition, what's the definition of this word? According to Mr. Strong. So I've got a valiant man or a warrior. Generally, a person. So it can either just simply be a person, or properly it can be a valiant man, which is a warrior. So if you go to your phones, I'm pretty sure it's the same. It says Strong's definition from 1396, semicolon, new thought. Properly, a valiant man or a warrior. Next thought. Generally, a person. And then it says, simply, all that stuff's on the other side. Simply, every, simply one, simply a man, simply men, simply mighty. Are we okay with that? So you've got two definitions for 1397. What are the two definitions? The definition one is? Sorry? Warrior. Definition two? Just a person. Okay, so you've got two definitions. So you need to understand, in the context of this verse, which one do you want to go for? Do you want to go for? So we've got 1397. We've got warrior. Or what? Or person. So what's another name for warrior? A valiant person. We okay with that? Valiant person. So you got warrior or a valiant person. Now Strong, he's a clever person. He knows that Hebrew word, which is Gehiba. He knows everything about that. But this is a simplified book, Strong's Concordance. It's not for theologians. It's for people like us who don't know anything. Okay? It's a layman's cut down version of a complicated book. So he knows everything about this word. But he's not going to tell you everything about the word. Okay? So I'm just telling you that as a fact. It's true. He knows more than he's telling you. Brown Driver Briggs, these people, they'll give you a bit more help. So let's go to Brown Driver Briggs. They're going to give us a little bit more help. So if you go to that one, the way they do this is slightly differently. They give it like a number. So this one has just got number 1. It's easy. Then it says, it gives you a couple of pieces of information. First of all, it says the origin. So it tells you where it's from, 1396. That's the same as King James. Are we all there? But it gives you another piece of information. It says what part of speech is it? And this one is a noun, and it says what? Masculine. So that's why they put in man here. That's why they put in the word man, because in Strong's definition it just says person, a valiant person or a warrior. So when you go to Brown Driver Briggs, they're going to give you a bit of information. It's not that Strong doesn't know this, Strong doesn't tell you this. So that's why I said it's good to go to both, because both of them give you half of the information, if you like. So we know that it's a man, because it's a masculine noun. Are we okay with that? Okay, so let's look at their definition. And they say man, a strong man, a warrior, emphasizing the ability to fight. You okay with that? So, if you put all of that together, we had warrior, valiant person, just a person. Now we're going to put Brown Driver Briggs in. Tell me what word 1397 is. What does it mean? Combine all of those thoughts together. Sister Beatrice. It's a little, tell me what 1397 is. No, I know it's a noun, but we've understood it's a valiant person, it's a warrior. They say a strong man, ability to fight. So encapsulate all those thoughts and describe what 1397 is. Say, this is... Do you understand what I'm asking? No? Okay, we'll go to 802. And so if we got all the thoughts of 802, don't go there, 802 would say it's the fair maiden. Yep. So one thing might just say woman, one thing might say beautiful, one thing might say unmarried. We put all of those thoughts together and we would say it's a fair maiden. Yeah? Maiden is someone who could be unmarried. Fair means beautiful. Maiden is female. So we could have that title. Yeah? So based upon everything that we've read so far, tell me what 1397 is. Not sure what I'm asking? You have a question? Oh, you're thinking about the question. Okay, but you're not ready for an answer yet. Dr. James. A strong person. We know more than person. It's a noun. What kind of noun is it? Masculine. So you can't say person, because person is non-gender. So start again. You want to try? Before you said strong person, and now you can say strong man. So, do we know anything more about this strong man? Because a strong man might be a bodybuilder, it might be someone who's a labourer, a farmer could be a strong man. So it means we know more than just being a strong man, don't we? Yeah? So I just want to remind us, when we went to Strong's, what did it say? It gives me two important words. Give me the two important words when you go to Strong's, Brother Rogers. No. No. You introduce something, you say what you say. The key thought on any issue is the introductory thought. Give me the two key words. Properly and generally. Properly and generally. What does it mean, properly? See, Brother Festus, properly? Properly means most correct. This is the most correct way of understanding what this word means. Properly. This is the proper understanding of the word. Then we could say, but generally, it's a person. Yes? So, all valiant men are what? They're all persons. Yes? We okay with that? Or we could say all valiant men are men. If you do high school maths, this is subset theory. yeah, or Venn diagrams. So it's just a subset. It's just another way. So particularly or generally. We're okay with that? So let's have another go. It can't just be a strong man. It must be something a bit more than that. Do you want to have another go, Sister Beatrice, or not? No? That's fine. My sister? We've got all these words from Strong's and Brown Driver Briggs. So I want a definition for this class of what 1397 means. Sorry? I want you to give a definition. I want to give your definition in your words based upon everything that we've read. I know you might not have it in front of you. I can repeat it if you want me to. You want me to repeat it? I'll repeat all the words. Properly, a valiant man or a warrior. Generally, a person, a man, a strong man, a warrior, emphasizing strength or ability to fight. So when you take all of those thoughts together, tell me what this word means. I want you to describe this person. He's talking about a person. What kind of a person is this? A person who's having? Can't just say person. It's not a person, it's a man. So you're saying it's a strong man. That's the same as Brother James said, and I'm saying there's more information than just being strong. Because a strong man could be a bodybuilder. Now, a strong man could be a construction worker. So you have this construction worker, he's got big, huge muscles, and when he sees a mouse, he screams and runs away. What would you kind of a strong man would you call him? Forget the strong bit, what would you call him? A fearful man? Yeah? Some people would laugh at him. So it's not just the ability of or the property of strength that we pick up from this from this definition. There's other characteristics that we're picking up. Sister Elizabeth.
All those features, being a warrior, ability to fight, strength, I can call myself.
A soldier. So Sister Elizabeth said 1397 is a soldier. Is that correct spelling? So this is a soldier. Anyone else? I'll open it up now. Sorry? An army man. So okay, we'll put that then, but it's virtually the same. What you've included is the gender. And Sister Elizabeth didn't. Because she's inferring that, what are you inferring? That all soldiers are men. Yeah? We're not interested in the past. What we're interested in is the word. So we want to try and be true to the word. So when you just say soldier, you don't put gender into that. What we want to try to do is not bring our preconceived ideas of the past, present or future into our study. We want to try and be as true as we can to what the word is. And then what we might do is change it because of context. Yes? But let's try and be true to the word itself in its widest possible sense, in its most accurate sense, which should be number one top interpretation. And then we say it doesn't fit. Then we say we'll go to number two version. That's how we should be approaching this. If the primary definition fits, that's the one you go for. If it doesn't fit, what would you do? You go to version 2. How many versions do we have for this verse? This word? In Strongs you have two, don't you? We have properly and generally. Properly, a valiant man, generally, a person. If you go to Brown Driver Briggs, you have a man, a strong man, a warrior. How many is that? Three. Three in Brown Driver Briggs. A man, a strong man, so a normal man, a bodybuilder, and a warrior. So we've got different definitions of this word, and we need to decide which is the right one for the context. So before we do that, let's get a definition that we say this is the primary thought for this word. Does everyone understand what we'd want to do? Yeah? Okay. So soldier doesn't have gender in it. We've got an army man which has gender in it.
I was just saying, like, if we investigate from the root word.
Don't want to do that. We'll just go with what we've got. We haven't gone to 1396 yet. We're just with the word that we have. We always have to be careful that we don't go other places before we finish cleaning up the mess that we have in front of us. So let's deal with 1397 first, and then we'll look at the root word. Because if we've got it correct now, the root word will confirm it for us. If you don't do it that way, what harm do you do if you don't do it that way? What's the problem, my brother? Yeah. You don't know how you get it. Let's rephrase that. Correct. Let's rephrase it in a different way. That's the correct idea. You don't have a first witness. You lose your first witness. Your first witness is what? 1397. If you say, let's go to 1396. 1396 becomes your first witness, and then this does not become your second witness. They end up becoming how many witnesses? Just one witness, because one's confirming the other. It doesn't work. It breaks down. So let's stick here. We've got a soldier. We've got an army man. Who said army man? Okay, so in the army, what kind of men do you have? Two kinds. Sorry? Strong and weak? No, because everyone who joins the army has to go through basic training, and they all are strong. What kind of men do you have in the army? Sorry? No. That's ranks. Everyone's strong in the army. If you can't pass the test, there's a bar. If you can't pass the bar, you don't get in. And their levelers, they don't care if you're here or here. All they care about is if you're here. So this is the bar, the hurdle. You and I, we're here, us, and the soldier is there. So they don't care if the soldier is here or here. They're not bothered. Everyone is strong, otherwise you can't enter. But there's two types of soldiers. You watched enough movies, read enough books, even in the Bible you read enough stuff to know what the two types of soldiers are. Yeah. No. No. Yeah? Oh, not generals, not rank. Sorry? Properly trained. They're all trained. They've all got the uniform. My brother. No, the one in front. Okay, competent and incompetent. Not cavalry and infantry. Says it, we read it about 4 times in definitions, Brother Benjamin. Sorry? What's the first word you said? Courageous. Okay, you've got valiant soldiers who have courage, or cowards. They're the two types of soldiers that you have. One who are prepared to die, and one's in the heat of the battle, they just run away. They melt down. They're the two types. So a soldier, is that enough information? We've got much more. What was missing here? Two things at least. What's missing? Man is missing. What else is missing? Valiant. Not prepared to fight. That's missing from here. What's missing in here? Valiant. Okay, so we need to think comprehensively all the information that we have to try and get the thought here. It's more than what we've got. Okay? Now, when we have an argument in the church about should women wear trousers or not, it's all finished in about 5 minutes because it says men don't wear what women wear and women don't wear what men wear. It's all, 15 seconds. We've been going for about 20 minutes, I think, 15, 20 minutes, and we still have not got a definition of what a man is, what 1397 is. Okay? So let's try and get 1397. I've showed you the approach. You go to Strong's, he does half the job for you. You go to Brown Driver Briggs, half the job. We trust both of them, kind of. So they're kind of halfway into rule number 5. We say they're using the rule, we trust them, but let's just double check because after all they're just human beings. If you don't do that, there's no point in going to them because they've just got their sectarian creed or they're just show-offs. In fact, Strong's wants to just make money by publishing more books. It's pride, isn't it? Brown Driver Briggs wasn't even trained, Mr. Brown, and he just guesses what he's doing. We don't believe any of those things. Do you believe any of these were money makers? No. That they were doing it for fame and fortune? No. You assume they did it for a good, noble purpose. They were being objective. They weren't guessing. They were clever people. So we're going to go with that. We understand that. We're going to ignore all of that. We've done all of that. Then we went to the words and we saw properly this side, generally this side. So we want to know, if it says properly, is that the one we should take or the generally one? Properly, what did someone say instead of properly? What word did someone say? Stronger word. The most correct. So I like that thought. The most correct way to understand the verse is this one, this warrior, soldier route. So we've got that tied down. Now what we want to do is try to understand what kind of a soldier is this. Doesn't tell us he's tall or short. Doesn't tell us his rank. What does it tell us about this person? A man who can fight. He has the ability to fight. So, a man who has the ability. Did it say ability? It says he has the strength or ability to fight. And is, what kind of spirit has he got? He might have the skill, but he has a spirit to him. Sister Emma? Brave. So, a brave fighting man. Fighting, what does that mean? It means the ability, brave, valiant. We know it's a man. Yes? So let's cheat a little bit. Let's cheat a little bit. Who writes this? Who writes this? Who's the author? Moses. This is Moses. Yes? 3,500 years ago. Moses. This is Israel. 12 tribes. Yes? 11 tribes really. We're going to get Joseph and chop him in half. 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. We okay? Make up the number 12. Everybody okay with that? Did they have any soldiers? Did they have any soldiers, Sister Elizabeth? Yes? My brother, did they have soldiers?
At that time?
They do? Brother Benjamin, did they have soldiers? You're not sure? Sister Solange, did they have soldiers? Can't hear you. You can't hear me? There's plenty of room here at the front. Come on down. Do they have soldiers when Moses writes this? They don't. Sister Schneider, did they have soldiers? You think so? Not sure. Put your hands up if you think they have soldiers. Put your hands up if you think they don't have soldiers. You changed your mind, Brother Benjamin. Now you know. Tell us why you think that they don't have soldiers. Sorry? They're still in the wilderness, but this instruction is for whom? When they're going to Canaan. So this is, you can't use the wilderness, this is Canaan dispensation. They have soldiers? Okay, so that's the same answer that Brother Benjamin gave. But this instruction is for when they get into Canaan. So do they have soldiers then when they get into Canaan? Yes or no? Yes. Anyone who said no? No? Who are these people then? What do they have if they don't have soldiers? They don't have soldiers, they do what? But they fight as a nation. My brother?
I think at that time they had no soldiers, because that instruction was for future when they get to Canaan.
So, in the wilderness, though, they don't fight people? Yeah, you know they do. We can go to stories. In Canaan, they fight with people. So they're still fighting. So, and this instruction is for Canaan. It's not for the wilderness. They've come to the end of the wilderness. Now this instruction is for... This is why we built up all of this story beforehand. So that we wouldn't have to go over these things again. This is for Canaan. Don't be confused that it's being spoken of in the wilderness. This is not wilderness instruction, this is Canaan instruction. So in Canaan, did they have an army? Or soldiers? Brother Wilson? Yes? At the back, my brother? You think they did? Okay, so that's a good reminder. Did you want to say something, Sister Jackie? They did? Okay, so this is the rule. You're in the army. And do you get paid? Being a member of the army? No, we're here. We're Canaan. Did they get paid? Okay, so in your version of the army, I'll get in trouble. I'm the general, you're the soldiers. to say, you're my minions. The enemy's just at the gate. Everybody, get ready to fight. And so you're all getting ready. And how many kind of soldiers are there? Two kind. I'm saying we've got two kind of soldiers here. I know you're all dressed up to fight, but if any of you are scared, what can you do? Sorry? Go home. No, if you're scared. Sorry? You're going to... okay, yes. I'm not sure if I would be. So, have you ever heard of an army where the person says, if you don't want to fight, you don't have to fight?
Yeah.
A proper army, I mean. Of course not. Because when half of you leave, what's the other half going to say? If they don't fight, we don't fight. We didn't have a chance to win when there were 100 of us, and now there's only 50 of us left. We've got no hope. Is that how armies work? No. So if we're going to go to Deuteronomy 17, and then they say, oh, by the way, you got some tender family member, you don't have to go and fight. It's okay, you can go and relax. Do they have an army? No. It's as Sister Monica said. Now, when we talk about army, armies have certain characteristics, which is, primary one, obey without question. Yeah? The boss does not give the minions, the general does not give the soldiers a choice, does he? He says, oh, wake up any time you want to, when you're ready and finish your breakfast, then if you feel like it, we'll go and have a fight. Do you have options? No. So this is not what we would call a proper army. It doesn't have the characteristics of a proper army. When we talk about army, what we end up really meaning is a group of people which normally we would call a standing army or a professional army. They're soldiers, whether they fight or whether they don't fight, aren't they? So you can join the army today, here in Uganda, and you could be in the army for 30 years and you never do what? You never fight. What are you doing all day long? You're just living off the rest of the people. Is that the model that they had in the time of Moses? No. They did not have a standing army. What did they have? They have what's called a militia. A militia is everyone's a farmer, a builder, a teacher, and when the time to war comes, what do? They beat their ploughs into swords. Joel chapter 3. And when the war's finished, what do? They get their swords and they beat them back into ploughs or into tools. So this person is not a soldier or an army because they don't have one. So I want to take that concept out of our discussion because army is a very rigid and fixed term. It was back then and it is today. Give one story that you're all familiar with. David is king, and what does David want to do? He wants to copy. Who does he want to copy, Sister Snyder? All the countries around him? Yes? And what's the way he wants to copy them? He wants to check how strong he is, so he says to his general, go and count how many soldiers we've got. And what does Joab know? It's sin. Because David is saying, I want to check how strong I am. The strength is in me and my organizational skills. And Joab knows it's wrong. What's the warning that's given to Israel when they get a king? What will he do? He says, yes. He says, you'll take all of your children, all your daughters will do one job, and all your sons, all the strong ones, He'll put them in the army. And they'll just sit there in the army. That is called a draft, isn't it? Do you use that word here? A draft, when the government forces people of a certain age to join the army. They don't have a choice. It's a standing army, which means they stand around doing nothing until there's war. So there is no such model here. So I like this one. A man who has the ability, I didn't put it here, to fight and is brave. I like this one. A brave fighting man. This one, with a soldier, the implication is that there's an army, and there isn't an army there. As I say, we've cheated. Remember that. We've cheated because we're not just being strict to the word itself. We've looked at the context. But even if you look at the context, it just says, what word does it say? Warrior. And anyone can be a warrior. You don't have to be paid. You don't have to be a soldier. So I think we're still being true to the word, but we aren't bringing our own thoughts. Army man, again, we added this word, this concept of army. Are we all reasonably happy with these two definitions? They say the same thing. A man who has the ability to fight and is brave. This one says a brave fighting man. It's the same thing, it's just a shortened version. Everyone okay with that? Yeah. So we've got option 1, a brave fighting man. Option 2. Option 2. Someone put their hand up. Who spoke? Option 2. Not a coward man. Not juxtapositioning. We're going to the definitions. Powerful man is here. He has the ability. The ability to fight means you're going to win. You're an expert in combat. Sorry? Valiant is all here. Brave is valiant. That's the first definition. A person. We'll call it a man because it's a masculine noun. So this is any kind of a man. This is a baker. And all the baker knows to do is attack dough. And this person, he has the ability and the bravery to go and confront an enemy. We've got 2 definitions for the word. Are we okay with that? Anything else? So, for those of us who are watching, not for the class, because I think the class are used to approaching it this way, but other people perhaps are not who are watching. We go to this verse and we just destroy the whole thing because we oversimplify. We've spent an hour just with one word, and it's not even one of our primary words. What's our primary words? Pertaineth and that. They're our primary words. This is just a minor word, and we've spent an hour trying to get this one straight. Yes? So the problem is we don't spend enough time and make enough effort in trying to understand what is going on. So the other thing that happens is what we might think is a minor word on closer investigation might rise up in our estimation. Yes? So, do we know which one it's going to be? Do we know? Not yet. What should we assume? 1 or 2? Which version, Sister Emma? 1 or 2? Which one should we assume? Because we're not 100% sure yet. Why? Strong's. The most correct. This is the most correct version, so use common sense and go for the most correct answer. If it doesn't work, you go to the next one. Isn't that what Miller tells us to do? Yeah? Goes, go for the obvious. If it doesn't work, then go for the next version. Everyone okay with that? Any questions? No questions? Okay, so let me ask a question then to you if you have no questions. If you're able to, go back to the old way of thinking. If we haven't gone too far, you've been brainwashed. The old way of thinking, what is this verse saying? Brother Rogers, what's the verse saying? Standard Adventist teaching. A man shall not put on. Okay? So we'll go with this one. Okay, so either way it works the same. So, according to that definition, the way it's used, the way Ellen White uses it, are we all okay with now? I'm going to ask the question. So the question is this, my brother at the back. Version 1, version 2. Yes? The word is man. We've got two versions for the word. One of the versions, I'll break what I said. One of the ones, it says soldier, and the other one says normal man. Yep? One says soldier, two says normal man. You okay with that? Yes? Okay, so the way we normally read the verse, what man are we using? Version 1 or version 2? When we say man in that verse, the way Adventists use it, the way you used to use it, I'm assuming. Version 2. Does anyone disagree with that? Does everybody understand the thought process that my brother went through to say, we'll use number 2 version? Everybody understand why he said that? Go to Ellen White's usage of the verse. Which men is she talking to? Soldiers or normal men? Talking to normal people. So, the way we use this verse is version 2. Straight away now, what's the problem? What's the problem, Brother Paul? I don't know what else to say without giving the answer. The way we approach it as Adventists is we look at this verse and we say, this person is number 2. That's how we approach it. And I'm asking, what's the problem with that? Why is that problematic? Okay, so the way they approach it, they don't understand what the verse is teaching, but I want us to investigate what the problem is so that we can ascertain if they're approaching the verse properly or if they're not. I want to know what the issue is, what the problem is. My brother, what's the problem? We're using version 2. What's the problem with using version 2? We haven't even studied the passage. Most people have never gone through this carefully, or as careful as we have. We haven't even gone really carefully. We've gone pretty carefully. No one's done any of that. They read the verse and they say, we know what kind of a man this is. What kind of a man is that? Normal man. They say, we know that. What's the problem? Preconceived idea. Sister Emma, what's the problem? How do you know it's not the correct definition? Brother Rogers, what's the problem? Same thing? Okay, before we go to the original intent of Moses, let's not jump so far to the original intent. When you say the original intent, you mean the whole verse? Okay, what's the original intent? How do you know? What's the statement that we said? What's the statement that we said? Strong says the most correct. What we've done is we've ignored the most correct understanding of the word. And we just said it's the least correct. Now, it's okay to have the least correct understanding if you can prove it to be so. But without even studying it, why would you go to the least correct understanding and not the most correct understanding? Are we okay with that? Now, if you had studied hours and hours on this thing, and I had studied, and we come together and we can't agree, I'd say, did you even study the verse? You say, of course we did. We studied it and we came to version 2. I said, good, that's fine. We disagree, let's try and see why. But people haven't even studied the verse, and they're going to go for the least correct answer without even looking, without even thinking. Is that safe? Of course it's not safe. It's not following Miller's rules. You go from the most obvious to the least obvious. He doesn't have a rule that says it that way, but I'm saying you can summarize at least a few of his rules in that concept. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, so unless you can prove that it's not, how does the phrase go? The most correct view, which is view number 1, unless you can prove it's not the most correct view, what is that man? It's a brave fighting man. So this story in verse 22, verse 5, chapter 22, is about what kind of a man? A brave fighting man. It's not about any man. So, now let me ask you, we're going to close now. What's the most important word? That, or pertaineth, or man? Because now man is going to do what? It's going to change your whole perspective of what this verse means. Yes? What seems obvious at first sight sometimes isn't. You have to go through an iteration. Are we okay so far? Let's summarize. We got all the Hebrew words. We went through Strong's, showed how to use Strong's. Don't worry too much about this bit after the colon and the dash. This is the definition. We trust Strong's halfway. We're going to get additional help because we're ignorant and we don't have a lot of money, and even if we had a lot of money, it probably wouldn't help us. We go to the cheap, free versions. We don't go to the complex ones. And by the way, both of these have more complex versions of their own books. These are the cut-down versions for people like us who are ignorant. So we're going to get help from Strong's, help from Brown Driver Briggs, half and half. I'm saying that's 100% because that's all we can manage. Because no point in spending $100 on a good dictionary that you can't even understand. You might as well go for this cheap, free one. At least you have some kind of working knowledge. Yes? Okay. Because we're not trained to use the equipment, there's no point in buying expensive equipment. Just buy cheap equipment. There's another dictionary that we use, which is Thayer's. If you come across that. Hebrew, Strong's and Brown Driver Briggs. So Hebrew and Greek. This is Strong's and Brown Driver Briggs. This is Strong's and Thayer's. Thayer's is Mr. Thayer. He produced the same thing, but in Greek. Everyone okay with that? Just add that bit in. We did all of that. Then we said, let's look at this one, 1397. We went to Strong's and went to Brown Driver Briggs. We got different definitions into two areas. A valiant warrior and just the normal person. We saw that it's a masculine noun, so it becomes gender specific. So it's a man. So it's a valiant man, it's a normal man. Then we want to understand, well, which one is the primary definition? It tells us. Primarily and generally. Primarily, we're going to say means most correct. Generally means least correct. We've got a definition of number 1. A brave fighting man. Version 2, just a man. When we approach this verse normally, we just say any man. So we've gone for version 2 and we haven't even studied it. And why would we do such a silly thing? Why would we go to a secondary definition, a weaker definition, without even checking that that's the right approach? It's not how we should approach study. You go to the most obvious answer. The most obvious version is a brave fighting man, a warrior who is trained to fight and they're brave to fight. That's the context of this passage. That's how we should be approaching it, unless it's proven to be wrong. That's what we've summarized so far. And just one more point. All of this was just a man. Yep. So here it is, a man. All of this is just added information. Problem with this, this says not a man. Doesn't it say not a man? In your Bible version, it doesn't even have the word not there. So if your Bible versions were correct and it just said man, the King James translators have to try to understand and conceptualize what this verse is teaching. So some Bible versions give the word not here, and some don't. So depending what the Hebrew version you're using, on those Hebrew versions, they don't have all the Hebrew words. They just got man here. And so you have to add all of this information based upon context. The word itself doesn't say not a man. The word itself just says a man. And by contrasting or comparing, juxtapositioning, if it says not, then it must mean not. So they've added that in here. But they will not italicize it because they say it's obvious, which is important. If you've got Bible version that says the word 3808 is not there, they have now juxtaposed that verse, which is the same thing that we do. They juxtapose, we juxtapose. And therefore you know that the principle of juxtapositioning is true and correct. And therefore you know that when we juxtapose that and we created a chiasm, it's correct because it's the same thing that the translators are doing. So we know we're heading in the right direction. So let's summarize again. We're saying we understand the English. The English is not the original. Now we understand the English, and in the English, it all makes sense. Men don't wear women's clothes and women don't wear men's clothes. Finished. That's what Ellen White's going to do. The problem is it becomes extremely impractical and confusing because we don't even know what women's clothing are. Is women's clothing trousers or women's clothes the label that says that? Is a blouse man's clothes or women's clothes? Because as soon as we call it a shirt, it then becomes a male. Blouse is for women, shirt is for men. And you could cut them and you can make them look very similar. The only difference would be is the label. I know in some cultures the buttons are put the other way around just to reinforce the point, but they wouldn't need to be. Doesn't serve any practical purpose. So I'm saying as we approach the verse, our primary definition for man should be what? A brave fighting man. Don't want to labour the point too much, but if we were to look at all of that from this perspective and we start checking if it's correct, now we're going into what territory are we going into? Deuteronomy chapter What chapter deals with brave fighting men? Chapter 20? So it's a number of chapters. What's the primary one that deals with fighting? The laws concerning warfare. Deuteronomy. Isn't it 17? Confirm that for us. I thought it was 17. Maybe I made a mistake. Which chapter? The laws concerning warfare, chapter 20. Who said chapter 17? Why did they say chapter 17? Chapter 17 is basically the legal decisions by priests and judges and the laws concerning the kings of Israel. So it's not chapter 17, it's chapter 20. Are we okay with that? Whoever said chapter 17 is chapter 20. The laws concerning warfare. So we're back into the framework of chapter 20 if this is correct. And this is how we should be approaching the subject, shouldn't we? We should approach it that way until we're proven to be wrong. You have to prove me wrong. I don't have to defend myself. We'll discuss that in our next class. The way we even approach our studies is often wrong. People say, prove what you're saying is correct. I don't have to prove what I'm saying is correct, do I? I don't have to prove that. I just say, this is it. I don't have to prove anything. The burden of proof is upon you. You have to prove me wrong. I don't have to prove myself correct. Yep. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, as we meditate and study upon your word, we ask, Lord, that we too would be brave and courageous to stand up against opposition, against ridicule, against those who would mock us and disparage the work that you're doing here on earth. Help us, Lord, to be true and honest in our assessment of what this passage means. May we not come with preconceived ideas that would be detrimental to us. And yet we know that we need to bring our life experiences, our study habits, all of those things to bear upon this subject to help us. As we come together, may we please come into unity with each other. Help us to do this in the few remaining days that we have together. We pray in Jesus' name.